Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in to episode 6 of the Q&A series, Your Next Stop Partnership. My name is Luke Thompson, a director at Introlegal, a boutique legal recruitment agency based out of Cambridge Square. And I'm really pleased today to say that I'm joined by a friend and an ex-colleague of mine, Hannah Cornish of Slater Gordon, who's the National Head of Family. Hannah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Luke, for having me.
Hannah, I wanted to start really by saying that first of all, thank you for coming on. Obviously, we knew each other from when we were in practice, and I've always been slightly jealous when I was in family law as to how far you've come. Obviously, we kind of started out in relatively modest firms in the regions, and then you've obviously gone on to become National Head of Family at a top 30 UK law firm, which is a massive achievement. So I think a lot of listeners will be really intrigued to hear essentially how you achieve that. Certainly in terms of business development, commercial awareness. But before obviously we delve into that, I'd be grateful if we could just share with us your worst memory of when you were a trainee. I think they're much more interesting than the best memories.
Wow, there's quite a lot of low points when I was a trainee, to be honest, Luke. It didn't come naturally to me, I think that's fair to say. There is one standout memory that still haunts me to this day. And it was actually when I was in the family department. I was going to Norwich Family Court to sit behind on an FDR. And it was in the days when you would turn up at an FDR with a load of papers and you'd serve them on the other side on the morning of the hearing. It was before really all communication was done on emails. And it was a really, really important case, and we had very senior counsel who'd come from London. It was a big deal, and I was given the office pilot case, and I had the papers in the pilot case ready to serve, and I turned up really early, suited and booted. And when I got through security and went to find a room, I jammed the pilot case and I couldn't open it. And I started to panic because I literally could not get the papers out. So then I went down to see security and they couldn't get the papers out. So then obviously I burst into tears because there was just nothing else to do. And then security had to go home to get their toolbox because they lived around the corner to prise open. And you know, like an hour and a half had passed. I was being chased by counsel, the other side, which is what is going on. And it really upset me and it really scarred me. Ultimately, it was fine, but yeah, it was quite a low point.
So talking of court hearings then, Hannah, have you, obviously given COVID-19, obviously I know you do a lot of your own advocacy anyway, but have you experienced any hearings remotely yet? Have you had to conduct any?
Yeah, I've done 2 FDRs, a couple of first appointments, and a couple of Children Act hearings, and I've got some Children Act hearings coming up next week as well. The results have been mixed, to be honest. The FDRs remotely have been incredibly challenging. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to try and get the court to agree to do it on some form of video conferencing service, such as Zoom or something like that, because trying to do FDRs over telephone are really hard graft. You have to have a really good relationship with your opponent. And it's just not the same, but doing them over video conferencing is okay. But I found the challenge is actually getting the court to do that. The court seem to prefer, I mean, it depends, different courts are dealing with matters differently, but they seem to prefer having them over telephone just because I think logistically it's easier.
So how is it working then in practice? So obviously when you're at court, as I well know, you have to have moments where the hearing will break and as you have a consultation with your client. So essentially, are you all just logging out and then saying, right, we're going to log back in 15 minutes and you go away?
The ones I've done it, bearing in mind they've only been on telephone conferencing, we've literally dialed in at a set time.
Yeah.
So for the FDRs, we've given submissions. The judge has given an indication, and then we've all hung up. Mm-hmm. And then I've gone and spoken to my client, discussed it, explained it, discussed whether we want to put any counter proposals forward, how we want to proceed. And then me and my opponent have just sat on the phone going back and forth. Right. And then numerous calls to the client. Obviously, it's challenging. It's not the same, but it is better than nothing ultimately, because it's getting the ball rolling, it's keeping the momentum on the case. You're still making a lot of progress that you wouldn't make necessarily back and forth in correspondence over, you know, a number of months.
So can you see it being a bit of a halfway house in terms? So obviously, when we come out of the other side of this, there being essentially a bit of this, a little bit of what we used to do before, just to help obviously the process of keeping the backlogs down at court.
Yeah, I can. I mean, a lot more practitioners are using alternative methods. So on both of those cases where I had FDRs, my opponents wouldn't agree to private FDRs or looking at arbitration, which was a shame, because if you have a private FDR, then you can just set it up properly on a video call. You've got the judge all day. The biggest challenge I found on both my telephone hearings was that when we wanted to clarify something, or we wanted a further indication from the judge, which they were clear we could have, we couldn't then get hold of the judge. So
Right.
I think it's a little bit easier. And if you can convince your opponent to do a private FDR, because then you've booked your counsel or solicitor, whoever is conducting the FDR, as your judge all day, so you know you can get hold of them.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, Hannah, obviously, we've touched upon the fact that you are national head of Slater and Gordon's family department. I mean, how many people are in that department across the
There's
country?
about 30, which is made up of about probably 24 fee earners and the rest support.
Wow. So,
Something. We are one of the largest family teams in the country. I certainly don't think we're the biggest, but we're certainly up there in terms of mid to large for a family team.
and in terms of the types of clients you have, is there a particular type of client, or where does the work essentially come from?
One of the really great things about a firm like Slater and Gordon is that you attract a range of different clients. So we really do see it all, literally. So we get a lot of clients who are public sector clients with, say, uniformed pensions. We are known for our skills and expertise when it comes to talking about uniform pensions. So we naturally get a lot of, say, police clients through the door, NHS and so forth. In addition, we get a lot of just, the average person off the streets somewhere. Middle England is a very popular band for us. But then we do pick up clients more at the higher level as well. So we really do get a mix. So it's great if you're kind of a junior mid-level lawyer, because you'll get to see a range of different clients and you'll get exposure to a range of different issues and asset bases, and also complexity on children work, as we do a range of children work.
I think it's fair to say, obviously we've worked together for a while in terms of on a recruitment perspective, that Slater and Gordon have been ahead of the curve somewhat. I mean, in terms of open plan offices, the benefits that obviously the staff have, the remote working element. I mean, you've always offered flexibility.
We've done that for a long time.
Yeah.
So when COVID and the lockdown took place, we were really well prepared as a business, because we'd already made the large investments in technology. We already had, most of the teams were already working from home at least one day a week, sometimes more. Obviously, this is much more extreme and it's not the same, but equally, we were very well prepared. We've been paperless now for quite a while. So it's not been too stressful, is the honest answer.
And in terms of obviously overseeing a department of that size, I mean, how do you prepare your junior lawyers coming through to adopt commercial awareness and business development as key skills in everyday practice?
Yeah. And this is something that we talk about a lot actually at Slater and Gordon, and commercial awareness really is a hot topic, as I'm sure it is everywhere. For starters, I'm very, very lucky. I've got some amazing lawyers in the team of a range of experience. And the honest answer is it's very much a shared role that we all share together. And we're quite good at playing to each other's strengths, because we're a big firm and we're a big family team. Everyone has an opportunity to say what they enjoy doing and what they'd like to contribute to the team. And because there's so many of us, luckily, it's normally a range of different levels of expertise that we can use as the business. for commercial awareness, I actually think this is something that comes with time. It's not really something they teach you at law school. Well, I certainly never learned
Yeah.
it. And to be honest, I didn't really learn commercial awareness as a trainee. And really, it needs to start as a trainee. But for a lot of trainees, some law firms don't even give them targets, get them recording time. I know I didn't have any of that when I was a trainee. When I was a newly qualified, I practiced at a boutique family firm, and it was very, very different. They were incredibly commercially aware, and they were very keen for us to be aware of how much the level of service was costing the client, whether or not it was proportionate. Was it cost proportionate, the amount that was being spent on legal fees to the issues that we were arguing over? They were very good at teaching us the value of getting bills paid in a timely fashion.
Mhm.
And that really, I had, a couple of years at this boutique firm, and they really drilled it into us. And it stood me in good stead throughout my career to think about, not accruing debt, getting cash in, the level of service you provide to a client being proportionate to what they're spending and the issues that they're arguing over, because it's a tricky balancing act to get it all right. And I think for junior lawyers, it does take some time.
I agree. And I think that you don't get taught this at law school. I mean, I was lucky. The family law partner that trained me, he instilled in me the need to essentially, have an idea of, obviously, of what your billing numbers are going to be each month, networking, marketing, essentially being responsible for bringing in your own work, not relying just solely on the law firm brand.
Yes.
I mean, that's something you and I have always spoken about whenever we've obviously
Yes.
talked about lawyers or, potential candidates coming through. You've always been very hot on wanting to know what those lawyers' numbers are, essentially the billing. Obviously, people know their billing figures. I'm often amazed when I meet some senior lawyers who can't tell me their last year's billing figures. And I always think you've got to know those numbers. I think it's one of the key skills for commercial awareness.
Agreed. We spend a lot of times talking to our junior and mid-level lawyers about this, and business development as well. Just that point you were just making about being able to have a following on some level. We don't obviously expect this of a lot of our lawyers because we are a brand, but it's really important to be able to get work referred personally to you. I mean, it's fantastic when clients refer work direct.
Yeah.
And it's important that lawyers understand that at the start, because it's what will ultimately set them apart.
Well, I think now more than ever, I think lawyers are going to be realizing their true value. I mean, it's one thing to be a great lawyer in respect of the law itself. But now most firms, we only have to read the news, the legal news, to see that, all lawyers are a cost, because ultimately it's a business. And now people really see their true worth based on the amount of work they're able to bring in addition to the brand itself. So yeah, no, I agree with you, Hannah. So from your perspective, what would you say what's been the best business development for you? What's worked?
To be honest, I've done a range of different business development over the years. I've done large networking groups, small networking groups. When I look back and I think now about my key referrers and who gives me the most amount of work every year, and normally in December each year, I'll look back and think, right, how did I get X amount of work through the door? What did that bring in? And what was the value of the case? It's existing clients, when their case concludes, most of the time they're within reason happy and they're pleased with the level of service. I get a lot of work from previous clients. Previous clients are probably my main source of business. And I also get a lot of work from just a few contacts. I probably have 10 or so key contacts, which I've built over the years. A lot of them, honestly, are opponents, where we've worked together on a case, we've not got dissimilar styles, we've respected the way the other one has ran the case, even if it's not been to our liking, and we've referred work to each other. Often if I have a case on with an opponent and we've got on well, I'll ask them if they want to go out for a drink at the end of their case. Often with clients, we'll go out at the end of their case, we might have a meal, we might have a drink, we'll do something.
Yeah.
And I honestly found existing clients is a huge source. Otherwise, I think if you're going to networking groups and they're large, say they're over 10 plus people, it's hard to form one-on-one relationships.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get across to somebody in, say, 60 seconds, if you're lucky enough even to have 60 seconds, why they should refer their potential friend or someone really close to them to you. You know, it's a big referral with family work, as it's quite a personal referral. So I think if you're going to those networking events, you need to identify, say, a couple of people in the room that you think could be potential referrals, and you've got work to refer to them, as it bites both ways.
Yeah.
And then go out for a coffee with them, go out for a lunch with them, build up a rapport and see how it goes.
Yeah, I would second that, because I think as a family lawyer, I don't know about you, Hannah, but I often used to find that as family lawyers, you're great feeders of referring work,
Yes.
but it's often difficult to get it back in, because not everyone needs a divorce, not everyone needs a cohabitation agreement. So it's very easy to feed work. So I often say to people who ask me, so, well, how did you build up, the contacts you had? Is making sure that if you've got, whether it's an estate agent or IFA as a contact, make sure that as and when you've got the ability to do so, send them, not just clients, but recommend them perhaps to friends and family. So you keep that cycle of referral work coming through. So I think it's important to think outside the box. So,
and also just to touch base with those contacts regularly. So even if you're not referring work to each other, just to have a cup of coffee, have a breakfast with them, check in on them personally. It's time consuming, but I find it works because it makes a relationship far more genuine.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because it's interesting, because I think it was Rob Jappy, actually, of Int's partner at Int, who I did one of these Q&A series with. He was saying that a lot of his best referrers have essentially become friends through business.
I've got a lot of that. The lines get really bad because you get to know them, and there's only so much business you want to talk about, and you go out with them, you have a meal, and I've got a lady who's an IFA that I met about 9 years ago. We've both referred numerous pieces of work to each other over the years, and she's a really good friend of mine now. And I met her at a women in business group years and years ago.
Yeah.
I also get a lot of referrals off colleagues and old colleagues. Last week, I had a referral which was really lovely from a paralegal I worked with 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah,
so that's really nice. And it's really important to reach out to those contacts, thank them, and acknowledge the fact that they've referred someone and that you appreciate it. And obviously, they'll be well looked after.
So Hannah, for those people watching this who are senior associates that haven't yet attained partnership where they are, aren't seeing signs of that happening anytime soon, what would be your advice to them about what they should be doing?
The jump between senior associate and partner, I think, is a really big jump. Actually, it's a big move, and it takes time. And you have to be, I think, within reason, a law firm that you're happy at, because then they'll get the best out of you and you'll get the best out of them. So it's important to try and find the right firm for you, which doesn't always come easily to everyone. In terms of being able to evidence a case to make partnership, what we were just saying about having a following, being able to generate your own work, and not just for yourself, also for those around you. That's really, really important, because that's what will stand you out from someone else. Obviously, having a good degree of commercial awareness is essential. Hitting your target, whatever that may be, it is a must, and just the basics. And also, you've got to have an ability to do everything else, in terms of being a good team player, really good source of support for junior members in the team. And it is hard and it does take time, but it's certainly well worth it if you can make it.
Well, you always seem very happy whenever we touch base. I mean, which I think is quite remarkable, really, considering you've got circa 30 people to have to look after on a day-to-day basis. I mean, how do you manage? Because obviously, I know only too well the stresses that come with being a family lawyer. So, how do you managing your own caseload, dealing with the emotions that come with that, not just for the clients, for the lawyers as well, and also then managing such a large department?
I'm really lucky because I'm part of an excellent team. And the honest answer is it's teamwork. And if I didn't have such an excellent team, which are a real joy to work with every day, then this would be a complete slog. But actually, the honest answer is it's not a slog. And I'm really well supported. And I'd like to think that everyone else in the team thinks they're really well supported. I often just practically break my day up. So I often focus on client-based work in the morning when I tend to be functioning at a higher level. And, it's easier to get your head down and concentrate. And then in the afternoon, I often do management-based work. I find that helps sometimes, but obviously you can't always plan the days like that when you're fitting around other people's diaries. You have to be incredibly well organized.
Yeah.
And have a good team around you. We have some extraordinary lawyers in the team, and I'm very lucky that I'm able to pass work, delegate, and we really are able to work together, because I genuinely couldn't do it without the team.
Are you a sociable bunch? Do you try to get together as much as possible?
Very sociable, Luke. I mean, obviously,
I won't probe you on that anymore.
it's not compulsory, but if you genuinely like your colleagues, then it makes everything so much easier. And that's the best tip I can probably give on trying to find the law firm that's right to you, is to find a bunch of people that actually you really enjoy working with, because it makes all the difference. As family lawyers, our jobs can be incredibly challenging and emotionally draining, and you need a good support network to fall back on.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. So a plug then for Slater and Gordon. What is it about working at Slater and Gordon do you think that's so attractive?
So I've worked at a range of different firms, as I've said. I've worked at a large regional firm, a couple of small firms, and then I've worked at a firm like Slater and Gordon, which is obviously, it's a really large firm. There's always that discussion whether you work somewhere smaller, somewhere larger. Each law firms have pros and cons, and invariably they all have their issues. They're just different issues. For me, what I like about Slater and Gordon is because it's a large firm, it creates a lot of opportunity. It gives you space to be creative as a lawyer, and you get to meet a range of different people. I don't just work with the immediate family team. I get to work with really talented people from all different industries, whether they're really experienced and recognised journalists, whether it's the people in our marketing team. The range of people that you're exposed to and the support that you have from the wider business is immense at Slater and Gordon. And for me, I think it'd probably be a struggle to go back to being in a small practice and trying to fumble around and do some of this yourself. I also like the fact that you get a lot of autonomy at Slater and Gordon. That appeals to a lot of lawyers. They trust you. We trust our lawyers to get on and do an excellent job, and that works. You get a lot of flexibility as well. So as I was saying, pre-COVID, we were very flexible and open-minded to different working styles. We have members of the team leading a range of different lifestyles and different fitness regimes that they want to fit their work in. And that's absolutely fine. It's really not a big deal. And I think one of the big pluses for lawyers coming through a firm like Slater and Gordon is that you can really identify your skill set, and they'll work with you on this. And then you can home in on those things that you're good at and expand on them, because you don't have to do everything at Slater and Gordon. So if you want to practice in a particular area and form a specialism, that's absolutely fine. And equally, if you want a more broad brush practice, equally fine. If you want to focus on marketing because you enjoy it, great. If you want to go out and network, equally great. But if you don't, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's the advantage of working, as you say, for a bigger brand. There's not necessarily the reliance on you having to bring in the work.
Yes.
And I think that's great. The fact you can almost specialise within family, again, I think that would be very appealing to some people. Some people don't have finances, but some people love working on children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really up to the lawyers as to what they want to do, but they've just got a lot of options at Slater and Gordon and a lot of different ways to progress their careers, not just in the more traditional routes.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So, I mean, do you have any tips, Hannah, for aspiring lawyers coming through watching this, in terms of what they ought to be thinking about doing now, for a career?
Perseverance is everything. Work hard. You have to work incredibly hard. It is the honest answer. That there's no shortcut.
Yeah.
Preparation, whether it's you preparing your case as well or preparing meetings with colleagues, internal meetings, preparation is key. You really need to know your figures, know where you're going, know what your strategy is. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to build your own network up of referrers.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, again, I think it's great advice. I mean, Hannah, look, we've worked together, as I said, on the recruitment front, and I've placed lawyers with you who are just thrilled to be in your team.
That's lovely to hear.
I always hear such lovely things about you, and obviously I'd second that because I know you anyway. I think you're a great person. I think you're an incredibly shrewd family lawyer. I mean, you could be fooled over by the bubbliness and the smiles, but I mean, one of the shrewdest family lawyers I know, and I think that's
it's very lovely to hear, Luke. Thank you.
Well, it's the truth, and I think it's why you are where you are. And as I said, I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate you taking part in this, Hannah.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, Luke. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and it's always a pleasure to work with you.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Hannah.